Welcome back to the podcast. I am so happy you're here, as I am every single week. And I can't wait to dive into today's topic with you, which is the 3 prerequisites to raising your consulting fees. Before we get started with that, though, I just want to share with you a little behind the scenes of the podcast. So as I'm recording this, it's the last week of May. And typically I record just a week in advance. As you noticed a couple of episodes ago, I lost my voice, so I had to get super creative. So I decided to start batching the podcasts and in 1 week record all of the upcoming month's podcasts in 1 week. So that is my new approach to the podcast, is batching things and trying to get some efficiencies of doing the same thing in 1 week versus spreading it out across the month. So we'll see how it works, but I wanted to share that with you. I may continue doing this, or I may go back to the old way. We'll see. But I wanted to share it with you because it's important to just constantly revisit, not constantly, periodically revisit how you're operating your business. So you may have repeatable tasks like I'm describing to you with the podcast recordings. You may have certain repeatable tasks in your business and have a certain way of doing those. And the way might be working out really well for you, but it kind of sucks your energy. The way might not be working out that well for you, and it might be hard to overcome procrastination and overwhelm. Whatever the case is for you, periodically revisiting those repeatable tasks can be really beneficial from a couple of different ways. It can help you become more efficient, maybe increase the level of quality, and it can also help you to just get reinvigorated and potentially improve the amount of mental energy that it's taking for you to produce something. So I love shaking things up every now and then. I wanted to take this opportunity to encourage you to do the same thing. And we'll see if I continue with this method or not. But I will tell you, one of the downsides of this method is I have recorded a good chunk of these June episodes so far, and I want you to hear all of them immediately. I think they're so good, if I don't say so myself. And I don't want you to have to wait. You will wait, and by now you've listened to a good chunk of the June episodes, but my impatient part of myself doesn't want you to wait. And that's been the one downside I've noticed so far. So anyway, with that, let's dive into the 3 prerequisites to raising your consulting fees. Can't wait to share this with you because it really is a formula to help you get to the place where you're not undercharging, which we talk about frequently on this podcast, right? So the first thing I want to ask you, which I find to be a really interesting question: who gives you the permission to raise your consulting fees? Who gives you the permission to raise your consulting fees? Really honestly answer that for yourself. Because on the surface, you might say, well, I'm running the business. But under the surface, I often find that consultants are really waiting for someone else to give you permission. If you're like most consultants, you might be waiting for someone else to give you permission. Someone to tell you how, your rates are less than we pay other consultants. You should charge more. Or you to get access to some rates that maybe, colleagues are charging and realize, oh, I have some headroom here. I should increase my fees. Who are you waiting to give you permission to raise your consulting fees? Mostly that comes from kind of a hangover from corporate, right? When you were in corporate, as we all were at some point, you had to wait for someone to give you permission for something. Whether it was a budget that gave you permission to spend money, whether it was, even though you had a budget, you still had to get permission to spend money, whether it was increasing the rates of what you were charging in corporate to your clients, and some person in finance had to help you look at it, or sales had to bless it. It's just such an interesting question to ask yourself. Who are you waiting on to give you permission to raise your consulting fees? So today, let's just start off this episode by saying you get to decide when you're going to raise your consulting fees. And now you're going to work on the prerequisites to feel like, to get yourself into the most ideal spot to go ahead and raise those rates so that you ultimately stay on top of your rates, so that you're handling them in a more systematic versus haphazard way, and that ultimately you're avoiding undercharging. So with that, we're going to cover these 3 prerequisites today. I'm going to tell you what they are, and then I'm going to dive into the details of each one of them so that you know how to implement this in your business. And I'll give you an example as we go, really to help you get crystal clear on these 3 prerequisites. So the first is, number 1, be clear on what you're selling and what you're not selling. Number 2, frequently calculate the tangible and intangible value of the work you deliver. So you want to be calculating the value of the work you're delivering, the outcomes you're creating, on both a tangible and intangible way. And then thirdly is to sell yourself on the fee increases. Sell yourself first. So let's dive into each of these 3. You can go to the show notes and grab them. So you don't have to be taking copious notes here, but I want to really dive into each of these 3 prerequisites so you can figure out how this applies to you and your business. So the first one, be clear on what you're selling and what you're not selling. We've talked about this in prior episodes in other ways. You can go back to episode 60 after this. We'll put the link to that in the show notes to really think about this in a different level in terms of your sales mindset. But for today, let's talk about being clear on what you're selling as a prerequisite to you increasing your consulting fees. Most consultants, here's what you're not selling. Here's what you're not selling. Most consultants think they're selling themselves. That's not what you're selling. If you think you're selling yourself, you're probably in a staff augmentation or extra pair of hands type of a situation. And honestly, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're listening to this episode, my guess is that that's not your ultimate goal for your business, to be staff augmentation or that extra pair of hands. You want to elevate your business and continue elevating and growing your business so you have more impact and you're more fulfilled in the type of work you're doing, and quite frankly, are paid more. So with that, we need to decouple you from your services. You're not selling yourself, because if you are, it's so easy to hit a limit on what you're charging. In this case, we're really getting clear on what you're selling, which is, again, is not you. And what it is that you're selling is the outcomes that you help your clients to achieve. That is what you're selling. And that's what you want to be very clear on as a prerequisite to raising your rates, to raising your fees, to raising your pricing. You are selling the outcomes. You are selling the results. You are selling what the client's, that ultimate end state that the client is looking to achieve. And when you're able to separate those outcomes and benefits that you're helping your clients to achieve and start charging for your work in that way, quite frankly, your revenue potential can be endless. It's no longer attached to the amount of time you're spending. Your fees and pricing and revenue is attached to the results you're getting for your clients. And so that's the prerequisite to you charging more. The first prerequisite to you charging more as an independent consultant is to get crystal clear on what you're selling. What are those outcomes? And to stop thinking that you're selling yourself. This first prerequisite can be as simple as, I am not selling myself. I will stop thinking that. I will start noticing when I'm thinking that and cut that off, because it's not benefiting you and it's not benefiting your clients. So now let's dive into the second prerequisite, which can help you get more clear on to quantify the types of results you are delivering, the outcomes that you are creating. And so that's what this second prerequisite is to help you get very clear on the value, the intangible and the tangible value of the work that you deliver. So let me share with you a really simple, it's not incredibly easy, but it is incredibly simple exercise that I give my independent consultant business owner coaching clients. So the clients that I coach, those clients that I work with one-on-one, one of the first exercises that we do together is to really start helping them get clear on the impacts of the results that they deliver and to quantify those. So the 4 steps that I'll give you today that are part of that work that I do with clients is, number 1, just sit down and quantify the short term, so the immediate tangible impacts of the work that you do with your clients. What is that short term tangible impacts? Like, what could you truly quantify? Sometimes it's more straightforward depending on what your niche is as a consultant, sometimes a little more challenging, but really force yourself to figure out what are the tangible impacts of the work that you do. It could be things like increasing that client's revenue. So that's quantifiable, right? It could be things like decreasing their costs, like retention. That's quantifiable. How much they know the answer to how much does it cost to replace an employee. You can generalize that as part of this exercise, but then you'll want to ask them that question as you go through your business development exercise, so you know exactly what the numbers are for them in particular. So right now we're doing more of a kind of across the board exercise, but it's incredibly valuable for you to do also with each individual client. Then you're going to want to, secondly, you'll want to quantify the short-term intangible impacts of the work that you do. Intangibly, if that's a word, what is the impact of the work that you do? All of those things that are not as easy to quantify, or to measure, just give yourself a guess. Don't overthink this or overcomplicate it. Give yourself a guess of what are all the intangible impacts that the work you are doing could have for your potential clients. Then add these 2 together. That gives you the full picture of the short-term impact. And then multiply that out. Think about it from the longer-term perspective. What is the lifetime value of the work that you're doing for a given client? And come to a number. It's kind of crazy when you look at it this way. When I have clients do this, we very quickly get into the millions, sometimes multiple millions. And then when you look at your pricing, it's like 50K or 100K. So crazy how that looks so meaningful, meaningless in the big picture to that particular client. Meaningful to you, but when you're delivering millions of dollars of value, the fact that you're charging 100K or 200K or whatever it is that you're charging looks so much easier on paper, right? So let me give you an example of this. So we're no longer thinking we're charging ourselves. That was prerequisite 1. Now, prerequisite 2 is really getting clear on the value of the work that you deliver. So let's just take a simple example. Let's say that you're an agile consultant. So as an agile consultant, you're helping development organizations to improve the process by which they deliver new product. A development organization might be a software company, or it might be some arm within another company that is delivering new product to market, right? And so your goal is, from an agile perspective, is to help them improve the process by which they're delivering that software in order to increase their throughput, in order to be more attractive to new developers, which at the point we're recording this is a scarce commodity. It's hard to hire good developers. So let's talk through this formula that I gave you. The short-term impacts, which are the tangible and the intangible, if you were to add all of those up, you could save yourself $500K a year in cost. Save that client $500K easily in costs every year. With retention, developer retention, with developer recruiting, the ease of recruiting. At this point, developers are looking for this type of methodology versus waterfall, for example, you can help that client accumulate that 500K in cost savings by them avoiding mistakes, costly mistakes that require rework, helps them with code quality, rework avoidance, speed to market, quicker to revenue streams, new product revenue streams, whatever it is, right? Those are some examples for you. So you could very easily get to a 500K number in terms of the short-term impacts. And by that, I mean, a short term, like 6 months, 12 months, something like that. And then over the course of the typical lifespan of the processes you've designed, let's just say that those processes last 2 or 3 years before they need to be revisited or refreshed in a larger scale way. Of course, it's always iterating, right? But in a larger scale way, the work that you've done will last them 2 or 3 years. You could then you multiply that 500K out, and you could be easily saving them $1 million to $1.5 million. This is a business case, right? What does it look like to the results of the work that you're delivering, and in a cost savings perspective or in a revenue generating perspective, whatever the type of work is that you do? That gives you an example. And so then again, this type of exercise can be incredibly eye-opening for you as you're looking at increasing your fees. Because number one, it's going to help you to really ask deeper questions during your sales cycle to understand the why behind why they might consider bringing you on board to work with, not work for, right? Why does this matter to them? Why does this work matter to them? What will the impact of this work be, tangibly, intangibly? What are the numbers you could attach to all of this? When you think about your business in this way, and Nicola, who I interviewed last week, referred to this in the episode that we just recorded. When she started thinking about her business in this way and asking these deeper questions during her business development cycle, it just naturally leads to increasing your consulting fees, and for her consulting fees, because you have such a deeper understanding of why this work matters and what it impacts to them in the what impacts it will have for them in their organization, and why those impacts matter to them. The numbers, the quantifying of that. So doing this second prerequisite that I'm sharing with you, which is calculating the value, really helps you to get to a deeper, more meaningful business development process, which naturally leads to you setting yourself up as a trusted advisor, and naturally leads to you being able to request much, much larger fees. The second value of this exercise, the calculating of the tangible and intangible value, I touched on this a minute ago, but the second reason why this can be incredibly eye-opening is because you can see the value of the benefits you deliver and make you more comfortable proposing those higher rates. Again, when you see the work that I do leads to $1 million or $1.5 million in value to this client, of course, proposing 100K or 200K, 300K becomes so much easier when you look at it from this perspective. So that's why this is one of the prerequisites to you raising your consulting fees, is to get your head into this headspace so it becomes so much easier for you to propose these numbers versus feel like I'm going to propose a higher number and almost like throw it over the transom and hope that they agree to it. You see the difference there? So then the third prerequisite is for you to sell yourself on the pricing increase. You have to sell yourself first before you can sell anyone else. And quite frankly, doing that second prerequisite may get you fully there, but you need to look and see where it didn't get you there. Where are still the hangups about you feeling like the work that you do shouldn't be priced at that level, whatever that next level is? What are your hangups around you asking for that amount of money, whatever that new amount of money is? And most independent consultants overlook this key critical step We just, again, delegate whatever our pricing is to the client's budget or whatever we think the market will allow or not allow. And that's truly not the truth. I've seen such a range in pricing models and what consultants are able to charge. And quite frankly, they are worth it and even more because of the value they're delivering. And so it's just not true that there's some kind of a market cap or some kind of an external constraint being placed upon you. The constraint being placed upon you is the way you're thinking about yourself and the value that you deliver and what you think your client is thinking, and getting yourself fully on board 110% that you sold yourself first. So part of it, again, is that exercise I just shared with you. And part of it is you asking yourself, where are my hangups? Where do I feel nervousness? Where do I feel hesitation? Where do I feel nauseous as I'm thinking about this particular new pricing, and why? Why am I thinking that? Why am I feeling that? It's because of the way you're thinking. So what are the thoughts you have about yourself and your ability to demand that amount of money in the marketplace? What are your thoughts about your clients and their ability to pay or their interest in paying that amount of money for the work you do? What do you think your clients are thinking about you as your request, as you're proposing that amount of money? Answering those types of questions, the questions in those categories, will be incredibly insightful for you to figure out where this upper limit is for you in the way that you're pricing out your proposals, and help you to move beyond it. And look, at the end of the day, you've got to sell yourself first on this new pricing, because if you think your pricing is too high, or you think that your client isn't going to want to pay it, think about how that makes you show up. It makes you hesitant. It makes you come across as tentative. It makes you kind of scanning the room, like wondering when the other shoe is going to drop, or wondering when they're going to push back on you, or wondering if they're going to, kind of just toss you out of the room, whatever it is that you're afraid of. And so, of course, it's going to be harder for you to sell higher pricing on your proposals because you come across with self-doubt and tentativeness. And it ends up making you undermine yourself and your expertise. That's why it doesn't work. So the alternative is that you've sold yourself first on the pricing increase. You're not waiting for someone to agree to your new pricing and your next proposal, and then decide you can feel confident about it. You feel confident first. You believe in it 110% first. You believe this pricing is a no-brainer so that you can show up in a leaderly, confident, trust-building way with those potential clients. Do you see how your thoughts about your pricing are at the core of how you're coming across in that sales cycle? In one way, when you're feeling tentative and nervous, it creates that dynamic that makes your client nervous to work with you, to say yes, regardless of what the pricing is. On the other hand, if you're sold first, that's when you show up in a leaderly, confident, really clear and crisp way with that client and build that trust and confidence with them from the outset. The ability to move your client forward and have them on board with the proposal that you're making and formulating with them all comes down to the way that you're thinking about it and the value you see that you're delivering and your ability to deliver that value and your unwavering belief, unshakable belief in your pricing, in your proposal, in your results. This is truly not something that you can or want to be delegating to your potential clients. You delegating to them to make you feel confident in your pricing by them saying yes is what's going to create a lot of either no's. They say, no, I've decided that we're not going to move forward. Or it creates situations where you continuously undercharge because you're wanting that client to give you permission back to the first question I asked you, right? Who gives you permission? Maybe not directly, but subtly, you're looking for them to give you that permission. So do not delegate this to your potential clients. It's imperative that you sell yourself first on the pricing and the increases in pricing that you create as you submit proposals and create proposals with those potential clients, and that you're not delegating it to them to make you feel comfortable that it's okay to raise your prices. So those are the 3 prerequisites. I want to share one last thing with you. So these prerequisites are incredibly important. I want to make sure that you put those in place in your business, but you also need a trigger, a point in your business to make sure that you're reevaluating pricing structures. Because if you're just kind of waiting until it feels like the right moment, you're going to delay until you've lost, you've underpriced so many opportunities that you didn't need to. So this doesn't happen without intentionality. You want to reevaluate your pricing structures. Some consultants have a great process where they just look at that after every engagement. So that could be your trigger, or your trigger to look at your prices, your pricing structures could be just adding it to your business calendar every few months, whichever works for you. Because otherwise your brain's going to gravitate toward pushing this decision off, and it's going to feel really logical. Like, oh, I'll just relook at my rates as soon as I know this client is really happy with the work that I do. Or I'll think about this after such and such happens. We know that that's how our brain works. It always defers to later to avoid that immediate discomfort. So in order to make sure that doesn't happen to you, either put in a business practice that you're going to revisit this after every engagement, no matter what, or set it in your business calendar every few months so that you intentionally are putting these prerequisites in place. And quite frankly, they're not a one and done. It's not like one day you can just do this work and then it's over, check it off the list forever. These are living, breathing prerequisites that you want to be focusing in on so that you can set yourself up for those pricing increases more frequently than not. All right, so the summary here for you is to get really clear on what you're selling and what you're not selling, calculate that value, both the intangible and tangible of the work that you deliver, sell yourself first on the increases. Don't expect your clients to sell you for you, and put it in your calendar or put it at the end of every engagement so that you revisit on a regular basis. And then finally, as we wrap up, I want to encourage you to put this work into practice. And there's a couple of next steps that can also benefit you in getting to the place where you're charging the amount that is commensurate with the value that you're delivering and not undercharging. So the 2 next steps for you would be, if you're interested in getting help in applying this to your business specifically, I only work with clients one-on-one to really dig into your business, figure out how this applies to you so that you can go further faster toward predictability, toward sustainability, and toward having more fulfillment and joy in your practice. So you can book a consultation with me at consultmelissa.com. My name has 1 S in it, MELISA. You can get the link in the show notes. But I would love to talk with you. Coaching might not be the right fit. And there's often times where I tell people, you know what, I think you should go do this instead of coaching. But if it is the right fit, I would love to talk with you in more detail and see if we would be a good fit working together so that, again, you're not just constantly repeating the same results over and over again. We can help you break through whatever your ceiling is and become more profitable, become more fulfilled in your consulting business. If you're not quite ready to explore private coaching yet, or you want more on predictability, creating predictability in your business, go ahead over to IC, the letters IC, scorecard.com, and you can take my independent consultant's business predictability assessment. And it's going to give you a rating, a score in 4 key areas of your business that relate, that are such good indicators of why your business is maybe not as predictable as you want it to be right now, and how to create more predictability in your consulting business. So go take that assessment. It will give you a rating in those 4 key areas, predictability areas, and also a really detailed report that gives you resources to implement whatever your growth areas are to improve the predictability in your business. So that's at icscorecard.com. Thank you for tuning in today. I'm so glad you're here, and I can't wait to see you again next week. Take care.